they're almost playing scared that first half, which you absolutely cannot do. That's why some of the Leeds fans were sort of booing at half-time.
Right.
Because this isn't why they all came down here. This isn't the run that they've had at this in recent weeks to get themselves this opportunity. So let's give Liam Rosenior the benefit of the doubt and say that this wasn't really about Chelsea to start with. It was very much about Leeds. But to give Chelsea credit, that second half, they barely had any attempts on goal. So they had to dig in, they had to fight, which were things that they were being questioned in recent weeks. So maybe that's the other side of that coin.
You just feel if they played a better side, and obviously City in the final, if they do secede a little bit in the game, a better team will punish them.
Yes.
Leeds could not.
But this game, you can only beat what's in front of you. Chelsea haven't been able to do that of late. They haven't been able to score of late.
Absolutely.
They get the win, and they're through to the FA Cup final.
Absolutely, and that'll give them some confidence. But again, we saw a Leeds side here today, and you talk about when you come to a big occasion like this, and it doesn't happen very often for a lot of players, so when you get this opportunity, you don't want to go home tonight and say, what the hell were we doing in that first 45 minutes?
Right.
Yeah.
We were it was almost like we're playing Chelsea today. We're not even in the Premier League. We're going to watch them play, and Lavia and Caicedo and Fernandes in particular were allowed to play. Neto was always a threat. João Pedro was brilliant up front at times, as he is. He's a wonderful, wonderful player. But from Leeds' point of view, they stood off Chelsea. But listen, if you're a blue coat owner of this football club, Chelsea that is, and you're a blue, you are wiping your brow tonight. The fact that there's a little bit, a smidge of pressure taken off you for now.
Let's welcome in Stewart Robson. Joins us, of course, he was calling us. Hello, Robbo.
Hello.
Lovely.
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
Was that a better game than yesterday?
Two buttons under.
It's a much better game than yesterday.
Yeah.
Because
not in the first half.
Game
no,
watching. At least we had a
one-sided
nice
in the
goal
first.
yesterday.
the first half, Chelsea played some decent football. They were allowed to play. I heard what you were talking about at half-time.
Yeah.
And the change of system made it more competitive.
Yeah.
But did Leeds have enough in the front areas?
No.
Not really. Did they get enough crosses in the box? Not really. Were they, when they had the ball in at the back and played into midfield, did they look as though they were going to open up Chelsea? Not really. But they had a big chance.
I asked Nedum this question. If Rosenior was in charge, would it have been the same thing?
No, I don't think it was. I think the sacking of Rosenior made the Chelsea players think they've got something more to play for, because they'd given up on the manager.
Yeah.
They didn't like his tactics. You saw that against Brighton. Today, I thought they played some of the football that we saw from Maresca. That when they were playing in midfield and they played those little square passes and they were playing it round the corner, Gusto was finding that space coming into midfield. So that was back to the Maresca days when they were playing well.
He became a bit of a poison. You know, when the manager actually becomes a bit of a poison in the dressing room.
Right, when it's toxic.
Well, he's thrown players that I'm banning him, and I've spoke to him, and I've had a good conversation, and he's not banned, but he is banned. You know, all of a sudden the players are looking at you and thinking, am I next? And that's a problem, and then you see that in performance. But Robert, there was too many times in that first half they had 5 at the back, Leeds.
Yeah.
And one guy to pick up, and Goodmanson, Nedum and I kept saying on this left-hand side, Goodmanson and Stewart were having a tough time.
Yeah. Well, there was once when Stewart could have played the ball. Goodmanson made a good run down the left hand side, and I think 36,000 people told him where he should have passed it, and he went back the other way through.
Yeah,
they had no idea of patterns of play in that first half, Leeds. When they had the ball at the back, where were they going to go with it? They went into Averting. Averting went back to the centre half. The centre half turned around. Biol, that's probably why they were taken off. But the change of system made them more competitive. They could get tighter to Chelsea in midfield. They could go and press the ball a bit higher up the field.
So what happens next for Chelsea, Robert? We were talking beforehand about the possibility as who was coming in as manager. Is it a poison chalice? Is it a challenge? Is it something that a manager can succeed in? Or is it coming in and being told what to do by Bluco?
Maresca wasn't sacked because the results weren't good enough. He was sacked because he didn't like, or he went against the club because he didn't like the way the club was being run, how he was told to manage the team, how he was told to change the players, how he was told by the medical side, you can't play him this week, you can't play him that week. What manager wants to put up with that? That's a very difficult situation. I heard Craig talking, I think it was at half-time, saying about, you've got to go in and say, this is what I'm going to do as the manager.
Right.
And what are you going to do for me? And how are you going to try and manage me? And if he doesn't like that, he's going to say, no, sorry, I can't take the job.
Tuchel, Pochettino, Potter, obviously, Rosenior, they've all come and they've all gone. Why is it going to be any difference for whoever comes in?
Some of them gone for different reasons.
Right.
Potter went, and I'm not saying the control wasn't a problem, but Potter went because Tuchel went because the football got a bit dull and boring, and he likes to have power. Potter went because he couldn't get them playing. Pochettino, I think, just again, he's been at a higher level and he wouldn't accept it. And Maresca was being told by the sports scientists how he couldn't play and how long he could play them,
Right.
and all that. And Liam Rosenior just made a complete mess of it. He was out his depth. Favourite on the list was Andoni Iraola. I don't think there's many people around will say he's not a very good manager. The problem is, A, does he want to go back to Spain with the family? And B, is there anything else out there, i.e., Carrick's not a shoe-in at Man United? And actually, believe it or not, Man United have been run better than Chelsea. And that is
Who would have thought we'd be saying that?
That is saying something. So there are other jobs out there that Andoni Iraola and one or two managers that are pretty hot may be looking at. And when you look at set another job and you say, yeah, maybe the team's not quite as good, but I'm not going to get stitched up at that club as much as I'm going to get stitched up maybe at Chelsea. That could put some off. And we talked about this before. The meddling at Chelsea could put good managers off. Look, Chelsea have just got to the FA Cup final.
Yes.
There's players to work with. Not perfect, but there are some good players to work with. I don't get Garnacho, that kind of signing. And there's been signings, Mihailo Mudryk, who has some legal issues to deal with, but even before that, it was almost like they signed him because somebody else wanted him.
Yeah.
Very raw. So they have got some players to work with, not enough to challenge clearly for the top honours in England, i.e. the Premier League. But yeah, I mean, if a manager wants to come in and most of them think they can make a difference, I think they'll get a decent hire. What the ownership will do, and whether, as Robbo said, they will learn some lessons, and I'm not convinced they will learn any lessons about their meddling.
Yeah.
With sporting directors and how many of them is, and sports scientists, I'm not sure there will be a sea change. I think somebody's just going to be able to handle that slightly better, and I don't know who that man is. But they have averted a disaster today in relative terms, because the season was going downhill. Like a downhill skier, and fast. They couldn't win a game. They were dishevelled almost in every game they played recently, apart from Port Vale, who are in the third tier. So at least today at Wembley, albeit Leeds didn't have a great game, Chelsea put on a performance good enough to get to the FA Cup final. And from where they've been recently, that's a starting point.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Well, what you could
they're the world champions, and now they could be the FA Cup champions.
They could just bookend the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
with
what
two
you could tell,
trophies.
there's a massive difference between the sets of players today. The ability of the Chelsea players and the ability of the
Now
Leeds
that'll be
players.
different for the final, where Chelsea will go in as underdogs, obviously.
I would say so, because Manchester City are on a good run of form. Whether they play their strongest team, depending how they've done in the Premier League at the time. But they still go in as favourites because Man City are on a good roll. They know exactly what they're trying to do. The manager has been there for years and seems to bring in the best out of players in this time of the year. And Chelsea, it's one game we've seen that they played well. That's all.
No offence to Leeds, but this is the final kind of you want. You want two teams that are going to go for it, as opposed to what we've seen from Leeds and Southampton. And as much as the fans have enjoyed themselves, they've had to sit in. We're just taking the entertainment level out of these games.
To be honest, from my perspective, of the two games that we've seen, the second half for Leeds was the more progressive of the two underdogs. I think Southampton yesterday, especially as the game wore on, they were retreating more and more and more.
But we're not going to get that in the final.
You probably shouldn't. I think the finish from Azaz was a brilliant finish. If it wasn't for Nico Gonzalez scoring yesterday, you'd probably talk about that more. And then today, that first half from Leeds, Premier League to Premier League's pathetic.
You said to me up there, in the first half against a better team yesterday, Southampton were as competitive.
Yes.
Right.
As Leeds were today.
Yeah. Okay.
And that kind of tells us.
I'm trying to look to the final. You keep dragging me back to
sorry,
this.
it's my fault. I thought in that first half Leeds were hiding. And I think at times on these sorts of big occasions, there's a difference why some people can step up in the moment and some can't. And when you then allow Leeds to be the protagonist in that second half, it's why the highlight was literally 30 seconds. Because unfortunately, they didn't necessarily have that creativity. But the final itself...
Yes, good, right.
Well, however Chelsea are playing at the moment, and they played okay today, there still won't be fear going into the game against Man City. And that's what these two sides, Southampton and Leeds, had fear going into the game. And that's why it becomes one-sided.
I think for the final, I think it'll be a really good game of football, because for Chelsea, they realise they've got nothing to lose at that point. From a City perspective, if they were to lose that final, that's 3 FA Cup finals in a row. And this is sort of drawing the curtain down on quite a few of those careers. It might be the manager, it's definitely Bernardo Silva, it's definitely John Stones, and a few others. So it's a really significant game for them. But Chelsea know that they're good enough to be able to cause problems.
It's, the league table doesn't lie. The best team are Manchester City. The best.
Well, Arsenal are top, so therefore.
Well,
they're
not playing Arsenal.
So thanks for that, Dan. Thank you very
what is
much.
it Stevie says? Smarty pants. It's good to know your smarty pants attitude travels all the way to London.
Yeah.
I thought the transatlantic journey was somewhat.
What if you're going to say something like the table doesn't lie? City are the best team when Arsenal's sitting at the top.
Well, City are the best team against the opponents they're playing.
Well, you didn't put that bit in, did you?
Well, it's obvious.
I mean, I
sure.
thought that was obvious if somebody had half a brain. Okay, Robbo.
I've got half a brain there.
I'll ask the questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look, I really.
That'll benefit Chelsea, though, will it? Going in without the pressure of going in against the team that.
Well, there's not that big a difference.
Right.
It's not like, Leeds United.
Sure.
So no, I mean, there's a big pressure. It should be super competitive. I just, I'm super comfortable with Chelsea's back four under pressure, which Leeds didn't put them under enough. No, I'm not. I mean, even the high balls today. I was expecting Calvert-Lewin as his bread and butter to win more flick-ons, and he didn't win enough against the two centre halves. A lot of the balls up to him weren't good, but the ones that come up that he had to challenge for, he didn't win most of them. Erling Haaland won't allow that. City won't allow that. City will not allow Chelsea the time that they got in midfield today. And when they win it back, they can play. Leeds couldn't play. Everything was rushed. Should be a great final.
Yep.
I do expect City to flex their muscles. Because of what Nedum said, everything's on the table. Probably the manager's leaving. Bernardo Silva's leaving. The team's getting older. And they'll want to go out on a high. I fancy them to win that.
We'll be back here for the final, in fact. Of course, just a couple of weeks' time. We know the lineup now will be at Manchester City taking on Chelsea live Saturday, May the 16th on ESPN+.